The Chiefs battled, but mistakes doomed them in a loss to the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. One of those mistakes stood out. When wide receiver Kadarius Toney was penalized for lining up offside, the Chiefs lost a remarkable 49-yard play that started as a pass from Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce and ended with Kelce's lateral across the field to Toney into the end zone. The play, the flag, and the reaction has consumed Chiefs fans and is the topic of our conversation on SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports podcast. I'm Blair Kirchhoff, and I'm joined by columnists Vahe, Gregorian, and Sam McDowell, and beat writer Jesse Newell. We break down the play and the call from all angles. Hope you enjoy. Let's get started. I don't even know where to start, to be honest with you guys. Anybody got a good starting spot for today?
All I know is, Blair, it's very important we line up in the right spot. Whatever that spot may be, just make sure it's proper alignment.
Well, you need to check with someone, I think. If you're gonna line up somewhere, you better ask if you're in the right place.
Well, there's no more of a stickler in this room than Sam McDowell. So, Sam, where do you want us to be?
I'm good with how we are.
Right up against the line, half a foot back. Where should you be?
Excuse me.
So, we do need to talk about this. Even though we're midweek, as we're recording this, or approaching midweek, and Chiefs have gotten on to New England, it is still a big topic of conversation. Were you guys, when it happened, and we were talking about it after the game, did you have a sense that it was going to dominate the NFL headlines the next day the way it has?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this would have dominated the NFL headlines even if there had been no penalty on the play. It was just such a miraculous play. I really think, looking back at it, it was a highly, highly impactful play, but it didn't come in a playoff game. I think a lot of the plays we consider the best of this era were playoff game plays. But I think it's the best regular season game we've seen in this era. And there's a pretty good list to choose from of those plays. So you add the penalty to it, yeah, it just adds on even more.
I had the same thought. I was thinking, after that play, even after the penalty, as we were discussing how to write about it, that to me would have ranked up with the Mahomes rushing touchdown against the Titans in the AFC title game. Yeah. Some other
Jed Chip Wasp.
Yes, yeah, some of the famous plays in Chiefs history, if that had stood.
Because those are all impact plays. But I honestly think that this might be the best place to start is where we had to start. You mentioned that we discussed it after the game. We had a longer conversation than we have ever had after a game about how to handle this because it was that unique of a moment. None of us have ever been at a game where that was called, first of all, because it hasn't been called on the Chiefs in 19 years. And for it to have that kind of impact on the game, it was different for the four of us, and we're there to see something we haven't seen before, and that just stretched beyond our imagination, I think.
Go ahead, Jesse.
I think what was different was the reaction. I've never seen Patrick Mahomes like that. I think that's why it was a big story. Patrick Mahomes went nuts on the sideline, and we never see him do that. We see him be the competitive prick that Eric Bieniemy talks about. We kind of see glimpses of it, which is why Quarterback, the documentary, was so telling when we see all this trash talk that we didn't realize happened in the moment because the guys have helmets on and we're far away from them. But Patrick Mahomes wanted everybody in the football world to know he was angry after that play and to be restrained by teammates, for him to go off in the post game, for Andy Reid to do it. And I know Vahe, you and Sam have kind of gone into more context about what upset both of those guys on that play. I think it's important for you guys to talk about that as well so that we can sort of talk through exactly what it is they are upset about. But Andy Reid never talks about officiating. He never talks about calls, and he refused to answer questions about anything but this call after the game. I mean, he was like next questioning football questions. So I don't know. I was in the locker room. I was telling people I covered Kansas football for 13 years. They won about 12 games in that time period. I've never seen players respond to a call and a play and a loss like this, like that locker room. That locker room was upset. You know, you heard guys in there basically saying this is what happens every play. They couldn't believe it was called at that moment. They thought they got jobbed in this one. So to me, the play is one thing. The penalty is another thing. But the Chiefs' whole reaction to this, and we can get into this, guys, like, I don't think that like what the Chiefs did is sort of. I don't know. I mean, I don't feel crazy different about them after that game than I did going into this game. It's just now that they have shown this emotional outburst towards this, we can tell there's some frustration in that building with what happened, and then obviously with how they're playing and the results that have come about here in the last couple of weeks.
Just a sort of an aside, but I think some interesting things connecting all the things you guys are saying. I felt like as that play was unfurling, I felt like I was watching a playoff game. It made me feel like it elevated the moment. And, we've all been lucky to be at a lot of really fascinating sporting events that have these moments, but only a handful that like you sort of feel it like in your body and you're going to remember it. That was going to be that. And now you're just going to remember it differently. But I don't even remember if any noise in the press box, for our listeners. I mean, really, the press box is generally speaking just there's kind of quiet discussion and stuff like that. There's not a roar or a ooh or anything like that. But I wish I had audio of whatever the noise was then, because I think we were probably all in this sort of like, whoa, mode. I remember being at Michigan-Colorado game.
That was, just to clarify, that was before we knew what the call was.
That was before the call. That's what I didn't set that up as well as I should have. But I can't remember if you were there, Blair, that Michigan-Colorado game, the Hail Mary. I'm up in the press box. You were probably down on the field. But I remember, without letting myself know I was doing this, kind of coming up out of my seat as that ball is looking like it's going to be caught. We've got the freeze frame of you with the Buddy Hield shot at half court. And I say that in humor, but I think also to make the point that some things in sports look like just captivating magic. And I think you might have said it afterwards. The offside, Blair, deprived us all of really. I mean, I think every one of us was instantly thinking, how are we going to write about that play? And then we had to write about that play in a totally different way.
I mean, I think Jesse's point's a good one that we need to get into why they're upset. But the reaction did speak to me a lot immediately after. It's what I ended up writing about after the game because it was – I just think a team that is 9-2 that's playing really well doesn't respond the way that they responded. And I don't have – and I'm not even saying – I disagree with this narrative that it's a bad look to complain about the officials when you're just so certain of something. And like I said, we'll get into why. But – I do think it's not a great look for Patrick Mahomes' interaction with Josh Allen. We don't know the full context of that. Josh Allen might have first said, hey, that was kind of a weird call, and then Patrick responds the way he did. But I think that's the interaction that I think if you're looking back and saying something's not a good look, you should focus there. Because we rarely see a quarterback have an interaction with another team where he's complaining about an official.
Yeah.
But all of that in the moment reaction and then afterwards, I do think it speaks to the frustrations of the season. And look, Patrick was insistent his frustration was about the flag. Andy Reid said Monday that he thought it was isolated to
communication.
Yeah, but I just disagree that.
They can't say it,
I think
Sam.
Context matters.
They can't say it if they are, right?
Yeah.
They shouldn't say it
and
if they are.
I just think the context of what they've been through
They're frustrated.
matters.
They're frustrated about the season. They're frustrated about how, even though the offense shows signs, then they throw a pick, and then they fumble a ball, and then they still only score 17 points. And then in the fourth quarter, they still can't get a drive going. So I guess my main point in that whole thing was, like, if they would have handled this like they handled it the previous week against the Packers, I could probably legitimately come to you and say, like, I still like the Chiefs' chances here. But this is different. And again, it could go, it's a fork in the road. It could go either direction. Maybe it rallies them together. They have 4 pretty easy games coming up. Maybe this galvanizes them. I don't know. But this is different than anything I've seen from a locker room, from a head coach, from a quarterback. And that, to me, they can talk week after week about, just continuing with the process. And many weeks they reflect that in their words. They did not reflect that with their words after this game. And that, to me, is what made this one so different. The reaction to this game, this loss, this call was completely different than anything we've seen from the Chiefs. And it seems to me more out of, again, frustration, desperation, whatever you want to call it. And so we'll see where they go from here.
You're hitting at something that I think is at the very crux of where this is going from here, right? Is this the kind of thing? I mean, it wasn't just those moments, right? We see Chris Jones with Joe Cullen and, a clipboard or whatever the modern equivalent of a clipboard is being thrown down. And I didn't see this, but I thought I read that Kelce had a little jousting with somebody on the sideline. And if you want to take the symbolic falling of the ceiling in the press room afterwards as part of the deal, I do think they're at a inflection point here of whether these things that we just saw mean that they're going to galvanize, to use the great term you used, Jesse, or if we're about to see a splintering. I mean, these kind of things can make you that way. I would far assume the galvanizing over that, but I don't feel like I understand this team well enough to know that I can say that with, real clout.
I think all I can say is we don't have a president, right? We don't know how they're going to respond to this because we haven't seen this before from them. This is different.
I think it's the football equivalent of turning over the training table in the baseball clubhouse. I think that was the reaction of the Chiefs in the post game. They don't have that in the locker room at the Chiefs. So I thought it was interesting that everybody was on the same page in the Chiefs locker room after the game. Mm-hmm. And so that led me to wonder, well, does Andy Reid kind of give them, a reminder message to the media when he finishes in the locker room? If so, then you would say something like, don't blame the officials for this. And maybe that was his message to the media after the Packers game last week. I think I would love to have seen his message to the team after this game because everybody we talked to in the locker room, including the defensive players, was miffed by the officiating.
Yeah, everybody. And that's a good time to get into why. I mean, Kadarius Toney is offside. Like, he lines up offside. And so, but that's what the conversation, I think, locally and nationally has been, is Kadarius Toney offside? And the Chiefs' argument is, what is the usual protocol that's in place if the player is offside? And it's not to throw a flag, particularly if the first instance that you consider throwing a flag is a minute and a half left in the game. The protocol is to warn the team, and Andy Reid has been very clear about this, that, hey, all the time throughout a game, it happens to where, 74 is in the backfield. Okay, I'll tell 74. Now it's on your plate. Now you're the guy that has to take care of it. The refs are watching for this. We've all seen screenshots where Kadarius Toney was offside throughout the game. It wasn't his first instance. You're basically telling him this is okay throughout the game. And with a minute and a half left, you're telling him this is no longer okay. And look, I think the refs are allowed to do that, but everybody I've talked to, and I talked to former Chiefs coaches, I talked to some other people throughout the NFL, I could not find anybody that said this is not preceded by a warning. And the Chiefs didn't get a warning. And so while we all see this subjective argument of should there or should not have been a penalty, the Chiefs' vision of this is just very black and white. This is the process that's followed, and this process was not followed in this instant. And there's a reason that prompts Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, everything we just discussed, to call out the officials, because they think this is a very black and white situation, that you skipped what is always part of this process. And by the way, it cost us the lead within the fourth quarter. And so I understand that frustration. It comes across differently in the age of social media as complaining about something. Look, I mean, I even wrote immediately after the game, they were on more solid ground, I thought, after the Packers game, because you couldn't find anybody that thought that was not defensive pass interference on Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Here, we all thought he was offside. It was part of our conversation after the game, but that's not what they're arguing. They're arguing that the process wasn't followed.
I think that's what we're trying to get at too, Sam, is to figure out that nuance, because there's so many things that happen on the field that we're not privy to. And just to bring people inside the locker room, I mean, people were on their cell phones passing around the phone to show the screenshot. They wanted to see where he was. And I'm telling you, like, to a man, they were adamant that again, I can feel how I want to feel about it. Sam can. We can all look at screenshots. Players were adamant that should not have been called a penalty. After looking at the screenshot, passing around, like laughing, kind of like, oh my God, I cannot believe this got called. That was the locker room. That was the Chiefs. And then we saw that from the head coach. We saw that from the Hall of Fame quarterback. We saw that from basically everybody. And so I do think it's good to get that nuance in there, because this can seem very black and white, just like, hey, look at the screenshot. He's obviously offsides. The Chiefs see this in a very different black and white realm, which is like, if you're going to call this, there has to be a warning, and or I've seen a guy positioned like that a million times in a football game and it doesn't get called, especially with a minute and a half, especially when things happen. I guess I'd be interested to hear you guys' thoughts too. I know Peyton Manning, his solution to this, which I think probably should be the solution next year, which is blow the play dead. Make it like a false start. If you're going to call it, throw the flag, blow the whistle, come in, stop the play. We never know the magic that would have come. That would have, I think, lessened the blow on this. The Chiefs still would have been upset about the penalty call, but we never would have known the magic that Travis Kelce was about to unleash and have something sort of feel like it was taken away from us in that particular football game.
I would just say I think there's so many variables in this that are intriguing and still worth thinking about, some of which we have a sense of, some of which we don't fully know. For instance, Sam correctly makes the point that the warning, if this has happened earlier, the warning is typically funneled through the coaching staff to the player. On the other hand, if the receiver is lined up wide and he's right by the official and asks the official if he's good, the official could say, "Step back, you're over." I don't know if that constitutes a warning, but it constitutes an indication to the player that he better watch it.
That would constitute a warning for sure.
So take all that into account. Now, we can't really put the one play in a vacuum, but this is just a devil's advocate question. So Kadarius Toney, under the present rules, lines up. Let's say he lined up 6 inches farther up. I mean, way offside. They're already calling it egregious. I don't agree that it was egregious.
I was bothered by
it's not egregious.
It's not.
The description of egregious.
I don't agree with
egregious.
that. It's clear, but not egregious. Right. But what is the remedy in that moment if, in fact, there's been no warning? Are the refs to stop the game? Which, under Peyton Manning's suggestion you mentioned next year, great, but that's not how it is now. What is the right thing to do there?
Well,
do you run in and tell them, hey, you got to back up? Well, that's odd. You can't do that.
Yeah, and to be clear, he's not saying to stop the game and tell the guy to back up. He's saying throw the flag, but stop like a false start.
But that's
so
under
a false start.
That's under a different construct.
Yeah.
As it is now.
So you're saying where's the line with that?
What should have been done if they had not administered a warning before, and yet here he is, he's offside. What should have been done? Well, since we didn't warn him before, we can't call the clear offside. That seems funny to me too.
But that's just the way it's gone. I don't disagree that it seems unusual, but that's because we're not in the game. And
right.
To the people in the game, the way it actually occurred was the unusual part.
I mean, we're talking. It seems like,
and that's a huge point.
It feels like the unwritten rules of baseball. Kind of. I mean, like we're trying to. Things can seem very black and white. You're watching at home, and you're not understand. But things are developed in a different way when you're on the field, when you're the coach, when you have the relationship with the officials, when there's all these tiny bits of margin of error you have to deal with every single game. And so, it is.
In baseball, there's always been a pitch clock in baseball. They just instituted it this year. There's actually a literal clock now, but pitchers have always had a certain time to throw. They've never abided by it. In basketball, you've got free throws. You've got 10 seconds to shoot a free throw.
There's no clock running. But
there's no clock running, and it's rarely enforced in that manner.
And before it is, you're warned.
You're warned about it.
Yes.
Like it was a story of the NBA playoffs. I think it was in 21 with Giannis Antetokounmpo that it was like, but he was warned that you're taking longer than 10 seconds. We're going to be watching for this. It's not the first instance that you call it. So that this narrative that, hey, it's a rule and you didn't go by the rule. Like, it's not how it works. You might think that should be how it works. It's just not how it works across all of sports.
With that comparison, let me throw this at you, Sam, too. Like, let's say it's a 10-second rule on a free throw. Let's say a guy takes 11 seconds. The official comes up to him and says, hey, next time I'm counting, you need to know that. Let's say you got no warning, and he just blows up the whistle, puts his hand up and says, 10-second call, we're going the other way. What would you think about that official in the moment? And do you think that's any way similar to what the Chiefs feel about this official that threw it, that thought, hey, instead of doing the right thing, instead of not in a crucial moment, you kind of grandstanded a little bit. Like you kind of showed off. You did the thing that was going to, I'm going to show them what's happening here, instead of saying, hey, next time, back up a little bit. You're 3 inches offsides. Did you see any of that in the Chiefs argument, Sam?
Yeah, and I think this referee bit off more than he can chew, to be honest, because first of all, I'd love to know his honest reaction as that play was unfolding. Like what his perspective is watching Travis Kelce lateral the ball in the Chiefs front of the end zone and thinking, well, crap, I didn't want to make this big of a point.
There is no flag on the play.
But the second thought is, like, I'm watching the Monday night game last night, and I'm watching it live. It was Jalen Waddle was offside. And what this referee has actually done is put every other official in the league in a bad spot, because now they're the guys that missed the call. rather than because the narrative on this is incorrect as far as what we just talked about. The Kadarius Toney is or is not offside. So now people are looking for, is the next wide receiver on or offside? So it looks like the next guy missed the call when he's actually abiding by the typical protocol, the typical process to warn the player. He looks like the guy in the wrong because we're all thinking Jalen Waddle didn't get it called on him last night. Why didn't the official throw the flag?
Well, okay, so here's the thing, though. I can't quite get past this. They need to be consistent with how they administer a game. This is an outlier at a terrible time. But is it not reasonable and correct to say the Chiefs controlled where they lined up?
Yeah, the players at fault too. But both things can be true, right?
They both can be true, but the overriding thing is if you don't line up offside, that play stands. I mean, I don't want to say as simple as that because it's not as simple as that. But
it is.
It is another example
one way to solve it, for
of
sure.
the Chiefs. Chiefs a little bit of an issue with detail this year.
To your point,
yes, I just think both things can be true.
Yeah, I agree.
I think both things are true.
Totally agree.
To your point, Vahe, you look across the other side of the line of scrimmage. Rasheed Rice is pointing at the side judge, saying, "Am I in a good spot?" Gets the acknowledgement and is in the right spot.
You see him getting the acknowledgement.
Yeah. I mean,
is not what we see.
And he's
Kadarius
half
Toney.
a yard further back, and so. Just to even make this more complicated, guys, going back, if you guys watched the play on all 22, Kadarius Toney actually sets the rub route that gets Travis Kelce wide open on this play. So I know Andy Reid has talked about, hey, he's 2 inches, maybe 1 inch offsides.
Protractor.
I'm going to go on protractor, is what he said. There's a reason for him to want to be
Protractor's right up your alley. It's on your bio.
It's right there. I think it's a protractor or compass. I think it might be compass.
I think it's protractor.
Oh, well, we have to check that out. The main point is that Kadarius Toney has a reason to want to be as far as he can be up on the line of scrimmage. If you watch him cross, him and Kelce almost collide. And it's a matter of inches from them not colliding. And because they don't collide, he collides with Travis Kelce's man, and Travis Kelce is wide open on it. But we all saw Travis Kelce wide open. Why? Buffalo had man coverage. Kadarius Toney got in the way. He was in the way because he was a few inches ahead of Travis Kelce, had a little head start on that. So again, I'm going to further complicate things here and say, does 2 inches make a difference? I don't know. But him being up a little bit further on line of scrimmage was the reason that play worked too. So it's fascinating to go back. And this is a great talking point. But I do think it's important, as Sam talked about, to clarify what Andy Reid said yesterday, and you wrote about today as well, Vahe, which is like the Chiefs' beef with this is procedural with things that we don't normally know or talk about from the outside. Less so than this, him lining up there should be a legal play every single time. And so that's a really good distinction, I think, to make. And I think hopefully we don't get lost in all of this talk with that the Chiefs are making a different argument than maybe it seemed like right after the game on Sunday.
Sorry to interrupt, but it was ruler in your bio.
Ruler.
Disregard everything you just said. This is out of your element.
Okay, well, yeah. No, compasses definitely don't have anything to do with math or math teachers, so especially back in the 1990s. So we can keep going.
I just want to say this too with Andy. I really appreciated, I think, the candor and the passion about it. I do think he was not cautious enough on Sunday to make the point that's not why we lost the game. He was overcome with anger. He really was. But part of the candor I appreciate is it only adds to the muddle here, which is, and that happened to be a play where Kadarius didn't check. And that was jarring to hear. I don't know about if it hit you guys.
Right, which he said on Monday.
He said it on Monday that he didn't check.
Here's the crazy part. The other time this was called on receiver this past week, Amir Smith-Marset with the Panthers. He went through the same training camp as Kadarius Toney. I guess Kadarius Toney didn't go through training camp. But
sorry, we're all going on and on. Me more than anybody. But here's a question. Let's go back to the if it did constitute a warning to Kadarius Toney to be told, hey, back up. We don't even know that happened because Kadarius Toney has yet to talk to the media. But at some point then, if Kadarius Toney is lined up, 5 or 6 times offside that it appeared to be, who's monitoring that on the sideline? And are you only accountable to it if the officials warn you? Or in
the press box, or offensive coaches in the press box.
Right, somebody's got that, right?
I feel like that.
So why is that not a thing here?
Yes and no. I mean, to me, if you know that it comes with a warning, look, we know Juwan Taylor is fully aware of his procedure penalties. and you test to see every game.
Yes.
What is this ref going to allow?
Yeah, great point.
And then you know what the ref allows, and then you're like, all right, this ref is not allowing where I just lined up. He's warned me on it. Now I've got to move. If Kadarius Toney has gone through the same spot 3 or 4 times, and the ref's not said anything to him, why would he think that it's incorrect to line up where he lined up?
It reminds me of pass interference, because the same thing with man coverage. You see what you can get away with. Jalen Watson made a similar comment online on Twitter after the game about his penalty we're not talking about, which was the 3rd and long. He gets called for legal contact. Yeah. He said, I did that 3 or 4 other plays. I don't get called to the biggest play of the game. It's the same thing. You kind of figure out where you're at, and then however they call it, you adjust to it. So I think that's going into this. And then second, Sam, do you think it has anything to do with, it seemed like those other instances that Dan Orlovsky brought up on ESPN on the Twitter account would have been with the far line
That's
judge?
What I wondered, but I'm not positive that the refs don't switch spot at halftime.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
It definitely was on the opposite side of the field. It was on the Bills' sideline where Toney was lining up every single time until the one that was actually called. So I wondered that as well. But I wanted to touch just super quickly, Vahe, on the thing you said about them saying it didn't cost them the game. Like Patrick Mahomes was very adamant about that too. And I actually thought one of the best points he made was, you never know, it could have cost us a great moment from Josh Allen too.
Yeah, you're right. But Andy wasn't clear enough about it is what I really meant. Patrick, I think actually...
separate point, but I totally agree. Andy was in such a look, Andy Reid is not like a screamer or a yeller. We know him well enough to know he was in rage mode after that game. Yeah. And I agreed with his assessment on Monday that he did not explain it very well on why he was mad. He went for the shock value of calling it embarrassing.
Well said.
A couple times, but it was not specific for why. We got the why on Monday.
Yeah. Which is going to cost him. He'll be fine for
it. Will.
I think Patrick will be too.
And Patrick, it's something we'll have to keep an eye on.
I wonder if he's... Mahomes is going to get additional fine for his antics on the field as well.
Yeah,
I would disagree with that, but I think it's at least possible. The NFL's handed out a lot of fines this year.
The Andy thing felt to me like battling for his team, though, too. We've seen this happen before, where
which Vahe asked him about on Monday. I think that was a good phrasing of that question.
And we can get to that, but I remember Jawan Taylor. Remember the first week, that's on Jawan. He got warned. He knows this. He's got to figure out
the opener against the Lions.
Second game, he got the penalty. He goes, no, this is garbage now. And he stood up for his player because he said, hey, my guy was warned. He did what he's supposed to do. And all of a sudden, now it's still coming at him. This is not our fault anymore. He's saying for the Chiefs, this is the NFL's fault. This kind of felt like that. Like the Packers, they all brushed it off. They said, hey, not a big deal. And then something procedural happens. They go, wait a minute. Said all the right things the week before. Was in the right mindset, and then this thing happens again against it's sort of, and again, you guys made a good point, which is because the locker room is all together, maybe this moves them forward. Maybe they are all united in this. Moves them
I
forward.
Absolutely agree with that. But let me bring up 2 quick points. We all saw it. And I guess we credit ESPN for this. The
25,192 or whatever.
Is that what it is? I think it's
something like that.
25,000 plus plays. I don't know how many penalties there are in football. I don't know if is it 20. I don't know how many different penalties are. But this was the first one, right?
That Andy Reid's tenure, that's 25,000? Okay.
Yeah, 25,000. First time offensive offsides has been called. And the other point, and I wanted to ask you about this, Sam, is what impact did Terry McAuliffe's comments on Sunday Night Football have on Andy Reid's thought process here?
Yeah, the first point I think it's really important because I would ask the people who are only focused on, he's offside. I'd ask, do you really think Kadarius Toney is the first player in Andy Reid's career to line up offside? And then ask yourself, why haven't the others been called?
Right.
And I think that gets at why he's upset and what we discussed. The second piece, Terry McAuliffe said on NBC that it's been a point of emphasis this year, and he's right. But he's applying it incorrectly because it's a point of emphasis specifically because of the tush push. And by the way, later in the night, we saw Landon Dickerson for the Eagles was called for offside incorrectly, by the way. It was Jason Kelce's hand. The center cannot be offside. And they called Dickerson because they thought the guard's hands were beyond the ball. So they've emphasized that because they want to take the tush push out of the game without taking it out of the game. And so they're saying, you can't be offside on it. And so they've been really specific about that. The emphasis has not been on wide receiver alignment, which is why Jesse and I spent yesterday morning saying, how often is this called on a wide receiver? And we found 4 instances all year. We looked at those 4 instances One of them, a Saints wide receiver, that is egregious. Like, he was well offsides. The other two are pretty similar to the Kadarius Toney. And one of them was also on Sunday. He mentioned Smith-Marsette for the Panthers. And the context that's missing is whether or not these guys were warned. Because Jesse spotted this in the Carolina one with Smith-Marsette. The coaches are furious with him afterwards.
It's funny,
with the player.
Two coaches are yelling at Smith-Marsette after this play.
That's interesting. That's really
think
interesting.
that context would be, we told you about this. They told you they were looking at you for this. Otherwise, I don't think he's far enough offside to where it would warrant that sort of reaction. But by the way, the fourth one was same crew that called the one on Kadarius Toney, and it's a hurry-up play. And so there's no evidence that Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's the fourth one, looked at the ref at all. But it is a hurry-up play. It's one of those race the line of scrimmage, catch the defense off guard. And so I could see in that instance where the ref looks at that play differently and said, you're trying to fool the defense here, and you've got to line up correctly if you're going to do that.
So, we need to start wrapping this up. I would say, as great as that play would have been, and so I'm watching ESPN Sports Center on Sunday night. They're counting down the top 10 plays of the day like they always do. And they get through to 3, and I'm thinking, I wonder if they would just add this one to, even though it didn't count, would this be the top one or second best play of the day? It turns out it wasn't. Didn't make the top 10 because it didn't count. But the other thing is, let's
It'd be a good debate in that ESPN room to say, should we still put this on the top 10?
Yeah.
But let's not forget the Chiefs had a pretty crazy defensive play in Germany that you all saw on the defensive side, right? With the fumble, the lateral. This one, I think, would have been greater just because of it's so unusual to have a player lateral the ball across the field, Music City Miracle style. But we didn't get that.
You're making me think of sort of I don't know if you call it levity, but the one moment where Patrick kind of smiled post game was when he was talking about. He kind of hoped that when at Travis Kelce's Hall of Fame induction that's on the highlight reel anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
Can I tell you the greatest part of that play, guys? The greatest part of that play is I just told you that Kadarius Toney picked off a player and ran his route. The guy that was guarding Kadarius Toney was Cam Lewis, cornerback. So he's trailing the play quite a bit. He comes up to Travis Kelce, and he knows that Travis Kelce is so loco that when he goes up to Travis Kelce, he sees him raise his hand, and Cam Lewis goes for the all-out jump-up deflection on a lateral and almost gets it. I have no idea how Kelce got it by him, but the fact that a cornerback is thinking, how do I tackle Travis Kelce? And totally gives up on that plan because he's like, this dude is so nuts. I know he's going to lateral this thing across the field. He jumps with both hands. I have no idea how he doesn't tip it, but that makes the play even greater that Kelce somehow gets this backwards pass around this cornerback who thinks he's going to throw it backwards.
It's like I'm anticipating that.
I'm anticipating the craziness. Yes.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You know, by the way, and maybe I'm just not thinking this through enough, but how far across the field was the Music City Miracle lateral?
It seems to me it went
Numbers to numbers
pretty far.
Yeah, I think it was
pretty
about
far.
numbers.
Oh, numbers and numbers. But how far was this? You know, I'm going to call it a lateral. It is a lateral, but it's really a pass. I mean, it's an overhand pass.
Yeah, we were discussing actually earlier
It had to be
today.
25,
I
30.
can't recall another lateral in a game other than the craziness of a last play or a kickoff in which a guy actually lateraled overhand. First of all, I don't think you see enough laterals, which is kind of another. That'd be one of the stories we would have written had this. And why don't teams use it more often?
He talked about it on the podcast. By the way, it's the outside hash to the numbers is how far Kelce threw it.
So what is that? 25?
25 maybe?
He also threw it backwards a little bit too.
Yes.
He did, but you have to do, right?
Yeah,
but it's not the first time he's lateral, too. Kelce, remember the play at Detroit a few years ago? And
although that was like a little pitch.
Noah Gray
Right.
earlier this year, he lateraled too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's right.
it was sensational. It was a wonderful play.
I'd like the Chiefs to come out with that as their first play on Sunday. But just give it a whirl.
That'd be great.
Kadarius, I'm good. Am I good?
Yeah.
Actually waits and watches for the rep to say yeah. Boom.
All right. Well, It's a great conversation, you guys. I know we didn't talk much about what's going to happen in New England this weekend, but we don't get a chance to talk about topics like this that often. So good conversation. Thanks a lot, and we'll see everybody in New England. That'll do it for this episode. Monty Davis produced the show, and thanks to him and our SportsBeat KC staff of Randy Mason, Jeff Rosen, and Scott Chasen. Tip of the cap to Jesse Newell, Sam McDowell, and Vahe Gregorian for sharing their insights. When it comes to digital sports pages, it doesn't get better than the Morning Sports Edition. Check out their coverage of the Chiefs, Royals, colleges, soccer, national, and international sports news at liveedition.kansascity.com. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more episodes of SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in and around Kansas City.